a party to go to this weekend, and that's the perfect excuse to make a dress. I've got my pattern all picked out, and I found this fabulous purpley pink fabric. The only problem is that this is stretch velvet. And the last time I used a similar fabric, the end result was not so great. Can I get this dress made in time to wear on Saturday and in a condition that's actually presentable? Keep watching and let's find out together. Hi, I'm Tony and this is So Lounge. Now, I picked up this fabric on the last chance clearance rack that was an additional 60% off for a mere $2.79 a yard. Yes, that's right. I'm going to be able to make an entire dress for less than $6. That's pretty amazing when you consider how much clothing costs these days. Now, the pattern I'm going to be using is this super easy knit McCalls pattern. This is M6612. I'm going to be making it in version B, which is the ruched skirt version with the cowl neck and 3/4 length sleeves. And because the weather is going to be chilly and rainy this Saturday, I wanted to go with a fabric that was a little bit wintry, but still fun for a party. This is a poly spandex blend. It is on jersey. It is a jersey velvet, stretch velvet. So the base fabric is jersey, and then through the weaving process, they added in the nap, if you will. And this is what is going to present the problem getting this fabric all ready for the cutting. It's fuzzy and then it's smooth on the other side. And because this is a knit fabric, you can't just tear the top and get it on grain. This is kind of difficult because it's fighting me. And I keep trying to fold it and then smooth it and it's rippling. And I have this side all nice and neat, but this side is not cooperating. So that is what I'm working on, trying to keep the grain of the fabric, of the knit, in the right direction and keeping it on grain while trying to, smooth this all out and get this to lie flat in this weird folding process. Just be patient with yourself. It is not speedy. And, you don't want these ripples here like this. You want that to all be smooth. So I'm going to work on this for a minute and then hopefully this fabric will cooperate and I'll be able to start laying out my pattern pieces and cutting. All right, so I think this is as good as it's gonna get. It's pretty close, so I'm not gonna stress. I do want to consult my cutting layout. So all of these pieces are gonna be right side up, which means they're gonna be easier to mark. The sleeve is going to go on this side. Let's see if I folded it. No. So sometimes you need to go back and adjust where the center fold is because you might have a little bit too much on one side. Yeah, I've got too much on this side. I need to move it over on this side a little bit so that I have a tiny bit more to catch this top edge of the sleeve because right now it's going into the selvage. So back to the refolding process. So I finally got this all laid out so that the pieces are going to fit. The back panel is narrower than the front and the sleeve, so that will fit on down there a little bit lower. And once I get this all done, I'll get everything cut out, get all of my markings transferred, and then we'll get on to the fun part of sewing. As I started cutting this out, I realized that I have not changed the blade on my rotary cutter in a while, and it's skipping, it's not cutting all the way through. This is not super thick fabric, so it should be cutting all the way through. So I realized that I really need to start with a new blade. I've got everything cut out and that's the time I usually check out the pattern instructions to see, how they want me to put things together versus how I decide to put things together. And my plan initially for this dress is to just use my serger. Well, that's not gonna work exactly because of the way the cowl neck works in the front. I'm going to have to use my sewing machine. And one of the first two steps is to finish the back neck edge, the neckline, by just folding it under and stitching before you put anything together. And so I was like, okay, great, I can do that, no problem. And then I went to look for thread to match my fabric because you wouldn't think this fabric would be that difficult to match. And you would think that with all this thread, I would have something that would match, surely. I mean, like, really. I do not. This is kind of a bluish purple. It's kind of a royal blue purple color, but a little bit more purple than blue. And all my purples are purple and my blues are all blue. So I thought, hey, I remember one of my viewers at some point when I was talking about thread color suggested to just use gray thread in place of whatever color because it would just blend. So I tried that and it doesn't look great. Like, it doesn't look great. It's not horrible, but it's going to bother me because I'm going to know it's there, even though probably nobody else would ever notice in a million years because who's looking at the back of my neck? But I know it was there and I don't like it. So here's the problem that presented itself. My local Joann's is closing. And because it's a liquidation store, not only have they not restocked thread in forever, but they have sale prices of 40% off and there's no thread left. So I thought, hey, no problem. The other Joann's is just down the road. I'll just go there. And I checked the website before I left and found out that the thread was on sale. Okay, great. Yeah, their thread selection, number one, is not as big as the Meyerland store, and number two, had either not been restocked or had been wiped out by thread locusts because they didn't have any thread. I mean, like, it was crazy. They maybe had 20 spools of Coates and Clark thread. Now, you may be thinking, Tony, use something else. They didn't have anything else either. So it wasn't like I was being picky. The only thread that was not picked over was the crazy, silky embroidery thread that you can only use with embroidery machines because you can't actually sew with it because it breaks. So I did what any regular customer would do. I opened the drawer at the very bottom of the thread cabinet because, yes, these are the ones they still have in the Sugarland store. And since I have one of these, I know there's a drawer down there, even though it doesn't look like it. And I managed to find 2 spools of thread, which might work. So I got those. They're pretty close. So the darker one, this one I think will be fine for any kind of top stitching because as much as I want to use my cover stitch to finish the neckline and the sleeve finish and the hem, I have absolutely no thread for the cover stitch machine. This was the only spool of this color. It's gonna look okay. I mean, it's not exact, but it's close enough that, you know, it won't be super noticeable. So I'm gonna have to use my machine for that, which I'm not super happy about. But I do think that I can do a combination of basting my dress together and then I can serge it together. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of right now. Plus, I need to double check the fit on it. Now that I have thread, and I've kind of tested out the stitch length, I'm gonna try a smaller stitch length than this one to see if that looks a little bit better because this is a size 3, which is fine, but I just don't love the way it's kind of separating the fuzziness, separating the nap, if you will. So I think I'm going to redo that, or use my sample, because I'm not using my real dress yet. Use the sample to see if I fold this over, how it's going to look with a slightly smaller stitch, and if that will work. Okay, so first things first, the very first step is to reinforce this little part of the cowl where we're going to be folding it under. And so I'm going to do that. I can't remember if it says to baste. It just says reinforce. So we're just going to use a regular straight stitch. I did play around with the different size stitches on my machine to try and get an improved stitch. So this is a 2.5, which is my normal stitch length. And it looks a little better. The color thread is definitely working. So right now I am going to stitch across these little, where is it? Here it is. This triangle mark here in, this is the top of the cowl. And so I'm going to just stitch over that to reinforce it on both sides, and then we're going to fold it down. It says to press, but because I'm using velvet, I'm not going to press this. So we're sewing at 5/8 to reinforce stitch this, and then we'll pivot at the triangle. I have my stitch length. I'm going to put it up to 3 because that's what I was using for seams. I'll use 2.5 for the top stitching to make that look a little better. I don't think this dress will take very long. I'm hoping this dress won't take very long. It's not super complicated, but the fabric is what presents the challenge. I'm just gonna put this aside for now because the next step is going to be to finish the back neck edge, which is going to, it's making me nervous, I'm not gonna lie, because you're supposed to measure 5/8 and then just roll it under, easing as you go. And I am not great at easing while I go. Hold it back to 5/8 and then you're supposed to roll it under. Oh, this makes me so nervous. And I know I'm gonna have to clip in these curves. I think I'm just gonna clip it now. And then that makes me nervous too, because you can't unclip it. Okay, I'm gonna try and not clip it. I'm gonna try and just fold it and hope for the best. I'm not horribly disappointed. I do think that I need to go brush the velvet a little bit to just kind of make those marks a little less noticeable, the stitch lines. Next step is going to be, oh, this is another complicated part. Open out, I'm gonna read this out loud. Open out front self-facing at shoulders, pin back to front at shoulder edges, matching notches and triangles, and then you baste. I gotta like visually put this together first, and then maybe that'll make more sense. Okay, so this says to pin the front and the back together. I wonder if we have to unfold this. This is the part that's always complicated, you know, and you're just kind of like, you've got to wrap your head around it first. So I don't think I'm supposed to pin those shoulders yet. Those shoulders are pinned. Cowl is just kind of hanging loose. Switching my machine to basting, because that is what comes next. And I move my needle over for that stitching, so I'll come back over here. Turn the front facing to the outside along the fold line over the back. So this is where we're going to be needing that reinforced little triangle, because once this is all flipped the way it's supposed to be, that's kind of where we're going to be starting. I'm going to just put a pin in here to hold this in place. So this side is ready to go, and we're going to stitch entire shoulder seam and then trim the seam allowances. Turn self-facing to the inside. Let's see if we did this right. And base. Oh, yay, 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 we did it right. Actually, I don't think we did it right. We did not do it right. What did I do wrong? This is supposed to be sewn into here. Okay, so I screwed it up. I'm not sure how. Okay, I'm gonna rip this out real quick. I did not read the instructions. When it goes over the back, it is also supposed to get sewn in. So this piece should have been here and then sewn. And then when it gets flipped, it's supposed to be finished. So I've been fighting with this for about 30 minutes to get this all lined up, and it turns out that my basting was not in the right spot. So I'm gonna go in and hand baste this and get it where it needs to be, because it keeps wiggling out of place on the sewing machine, which is kind of something I was concerned about, because the last time I used this kind of fabric, there was a lot of stuff that didn't match up just because of the nap rubbing against itself and kind of doing what it wants. And this has only been on one shoulder, by the way, if you were wondering, not even both of them. Let me just tie a knot on this side and then hold that in place. So it was what I thought, that the facing the lower part of the cowl goes back around the shoulder. That's why you're flipping it out that way. But then you have to get it all lined up, because if not, it looks really bad, which is what had also happened when I got this all sewn. It's not a must do with a sewing machine. Grandma actually always says it's better to hand baste because you have more control over it, which, you know, there may be some merit when it comes to working with this stretch velvet, that it kind of has a mind of its own with the machine basting. If you have any kind of a project that has a cowl in the front, this is pretty much the way they always tell you put it together. The last velvet sewing disaster I had also had a cowl. The cowl is flipped over the back neck. So first step was to baste the front and the back neck together, and then to flip the cowl over to the other side. So it's basically cowl. It's like the front of the dress, and then the cowl goes over the shoulder, and then we're gonna stitch it here. And I just basted both sides. So you can see there's one stitch line on that side, but there's two on the other to just hold it all in place. And now I'm going to go sew it. All right, so both sides are sewn, so the cowl neck is, that's how it's gonna look. But now we need to go to the inside and baste this facing to this front edge, matching at the notches, because the next step is going to be to sew the side seams. But what I'm gonna do first is I am gonna baste this all together, get it all lined up. Then I'm gonna go baste in the side seams and try it on to make sure it fits. And then I'm gonna pin the sleeve in, and I'm gonna serge the whole thing in flat because I think it's gonna look better serged. All right, so it fits. I'm happy about that. I do not look like sausage casing and velvet. Couple of things though. First off, I'm just wearing a sport bra. That's why you can see it. It'll be fine once I put on a proper bra. It's not too tight. It actually feels really nice and soft. One thing that this dress has, it has ruching in the bottom, and the ruching is going to pull the hem up to about right here, which I don't think I'm going to like with the velvet and with this print. I think this dress looks really pretty as is, and I think what I'm going to do instead is just close the side and hem it. That's my executive design decision that I'm going to put into play, because not because I don't want to do the ruching, because I think it would be super cute on like a different dress. But for this one, I like the way that it looks. I love this length. It would be a tiny bit shorter because I do need to hem it. But the other thing is I'm going to put the sleeves in, because I think this will look really pretty with sleeves, and it'll make it a little bit more wintry. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with the way it's turned out so far. I'm going to rip out this basting, and then I'm going to sew the sleeve in flat, and I'm going to move over to the serger to do that and get that done hopefully pretty quickly. I don't want to speak too soon because we still have some sewing to do, but so far so good, and I'm optimistic that I'm going to get this done. Since I'm going to sew my sleeves in flat, I want to finish the bottom edge first. That way I don't have to try and get that done in the round. So I'm just folding these over 5/8 of an inch and then just putting in that straight stitch, and just doing the top stitching, which is the same method I used for the neckline. It looks fine. I don't love it, but at this point I don't really have a lot of other options due to my thread limitations, and so I'm just going to get this all measured and pinned, and then I will stitch the second side. My sleeves are finished on both sleeves, and now I'm going to pin them into the armholes. Okay, so I'm just gonna pin this in the same way you would pin in any sleeve that was going in flat. And this works really well with knits because you can stretch them to be where they need to be. I find this is much more difficult to do when you have woven fabrics. Probably going to baste this in place by hand to just make sure it all stays where it needs to be. I'm just gonna put a basting stitch in between the side dots. All right, start again. Better to be safe than sorry, and that way I know it'll fit. I'll get it eased in a little bit and then go over to the serger and get this put in. So this is all I'm doing, is adjusting this to fit into this curve a little bit better and just taking out a tiny bit of that extra ease. And this could also be because of the fabric I'm using. I'm not sure, since I haven't done this with anything else. Usually I can just squeeze it in, but this may be more of a pronounced shoulder. I'm not really sure because this is the first time I've made this. I've got my sleeve pinned into place and I've got it all lined up. I did use a little sample to test out my serger with this fabric, and I'm going to put it one up from neutral, so it's on 1.3, which is kind of pushing the fabric together instead of stretching it out. I don't know if that's the best way to serge this or not. I didn't try it the other way. I didn't want the fabric stretched. I feel like it's going to stretch anyway, so better to push it together, but maybe I'm thinking of that completely wrong. I will have to ask my friend Suki, who knows all things about sergers. But for now, I think this is going to work. It looks fine. It doesn't look weird or distended. It looks like it's the way it's supposed to. So we're going to go with that. And I have to be careful I don't sew over any of these pins. I'm going to go slow and get everything lined up. Oh, that's fast. Maybe pinning this was a bad idea. I haven't decided yet. We'll see how this sleeve looks and if it has to be ripped out. Don't understand how this has gotten so horribly off track. It started off fine back there, and then this top piece has just slipped. Move this over a little bit and see if that helps. Okay, that was very dramatic. It looks fine. I guess we'll find out when we put the side seam together if it's if it fits or not. I'm not sure what happened there, but it's in. So we're gonna try the other side, maybe do a little bit better job on that one, and not have so much stress. One sleeve in, one to go. I have no idea how this is going to work out because, frankly, the first one didn't go in great. So we're just going to have to see. I tried to pin this one in a little bit better. I did a little bit more easing. I used a few more pins. I'm still really nervous about this because I just don't know. I mean, this fabric is moving. It's wiggling around, which is never helpful. And I'm just going to try my best and hope for the best outcome. And I need to change my glasses because I can't see. All right, that's better. So I haven't changed any of the settings because now I'm not sure if I should have changed it to kind of scrunch up the fabric or not. And I don't want the other side to look completely different. So I'm just going to leave everything the way it is. I also thought about basting in the sleeve and then decided not to because I didn't do that the first time, and I'm trying to get these to look as similar as possible. Whew. Okay, so here goes. Slowly, slowly. Oh, it's never slowly. Well, it's in. We can say that. And it doesn't look bad from the right side. There don't seem to be any weird puckers or lumps, and I didn't catch anything or accidentally cut off any parts that needed to stay. So feel like I'm winning right there. Next, I'm going to sew these underarm seams together. I'm going to get them all pinned up. Oh no, that's the underside of the sleeve. Whew, had a heart attack. I was like, what happened? Okay, there we go. All right, I'm gonna get these all pinned into place and get this all stitched up, and then hopefully it will fit. Fingers crossed. If not, I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do, so just gonna be optimistic, keep moving forward. I sewed one side, I've got the other side pinned. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. So I decided to see what it would be like to try and sew with the just at neutral for my serger, and that did not go well. So thankfully I had only sewn about an inch of the other sleeve and it was not messing up, but it was starting to bunch, but not in a good way. So I decided to just turn it back to the same setting, and that was going to be the better way to go. All right, it's put together. Now, normally I would not go try this on yet. I would wait until I was like ready to go to the party, but because I'm really not sure how these sleeves are gonna fit, I want to do this now just in case this did not work. So my dress is all finished and it turned out okay. It's totally wearable for the party. In a best case scenario, the sleeves would not be quite as tight as they are. They're not horrible. It's wearable, but it's not super comfortable. It's just a little bit tight kind of through the armholes. So maybe this is one of those instances when it would have been a better idea to actually follow the pattern instructions and sew the dress the way they suggested instead of deciding to use the serger and put my sleeves in flat. The other thing that's a little bit weird is there's some ruching going on here. You can kind of see it. I'm not sure what happened there. I don't know if the fabric slipped on my serger or what. The hem came out even, so I'm not clear. Maybe it slipped when it was cut and there was a little bit of extra fabric, or maybe that was supposed to be in the armholes. I don't know. One day we'll figure it out when I remake this dress on a regular knit fabric and then see how it goes. I have the hem in, I have trimmed all the loose threads. I even put my So Lounge label in the back. So I am ready to go. Last thing I need to do is figure out what shoes to wear because these are not gonna cut it. There's another great challenge sewing video coming up next. You totally wanna check it out. I know you're gonna love it, and I'll see you over there.